So it's all aware we are beings marked by time and events. Things that happen because they're externally, the world around us, in their own bodies, are kind of external to the heart. Something we can be aware of. Events, pains, pleasures, sickness, health, change. The process of time, things moving on. These are kind of ways in which we experience reality, we call reality, and organise it, try to organise it into a time that's going in a positive direction, events that are manageable and beneficial, with limited degrees of success. Yet, in that sense, this is what we have to do. Try to make things work, aim for a better future, or at least a future that's not getting worse. So there's concerns, and interests, and aspirations, and passions, anxieties. These underlying mood tones go along with time and events. As you cultivate, you begin to just using simple things like breathing in and out, or body, walking, contemplating mind. You see, the underlying mood tones are actually the most significant feature of the whole flow. That is, when it's not gripped with anxiety or worry or passion or eagerness, somehow the flow becomes more amenable, lighter. And you begin to sense the quality of heart itself. Something sensitive, responsive, seemingly very much engaged and affected by time and events. Yet when you actually come into meditation, you think, well, what is time? What are events anyway? Rising of feeling, perceptions, tactile sensations, thoughts, sounds, sights, flowing elements of consciousness, evoking, trembling, shifting. They don't really go forward, do they? They go round and round, fluctuate. And not even regular circle, it's kind of fluctuating flow. This doesn't really go forward. It just flows. And the sense of direction is something we impose. We call something a future, but actually it's just another evocation of eagerness or anxiety. Call something the past, it's just an evocation of fondness or regret. Only so to come out of the grip of time as something that's pushing you onwards, which is a great shift, because when we actually contemplate the experience of time, it tends to either push us forward or hold us back. We can't get there. We want to get there, we can't get there, or we've got to get there, or we're thrown there. We're even progressively plodding there. But there's a sense of something has to move from this to that. And that we're moving to is never established. It can't be, because you haven't got there yet. And yet that virtual carrot, donkey, trots ahead, sometimes dragged, pushed. What is that future? Other than just the anticipation happening. When you see these energies, these mood energies of need to progress, need to get to a point. If I don't get to a point, I feel depressed. What's the point? Where do I get? I'm not getting anywhere. You see the real heart tones and longings that occur in that evocation of the future. What if those tones could be abated? What if we just experience quality of goodwill, or patience, or equanimity, or joy? Where would that be? These are not events, these are tonalities of the heart. They're not things that drop on us, they're the way the heart speaks, if you like, expresses itself. And if these expressions of heart could be cultivated, seen as need to be cultivated, because without them, always driving towards something that isn't there yet. Or, being held back from something that I could be. Trying to find a point that isn't arrived. Wondering what's missed it. Has my life been a complete waste of time? This movement of doubt and uncertainty. So you just realise these underpinnings of the heart, and just mollifying, soothing. Not to just put a cosmetic on it, but when you use meditation to steady the heart, to stabilise it, to get it to come out of its crinkled, compressed state, or its feverish state, or its depleted state, it begins to get steady. And then it can unfold. So this is process of samadhi, or concentration, which is to do with nourishing, steadying the heart so it becomes more stable. Just to bear in mind that this word concentration, the Buddha never says we should concentrate on anything. He says, yes, it's important to be concentrated. Concentration of mind is necessary. But if you don't concentrate on a thing, concentration is the concentration of the heart in itself. It's not distracted, it's not fragmented, it's not depleted. And this concentration is aimed at votsaka, release, relinquishment. Because the heart is composed in itself, it begins to release the trappings of time, event, circumstance. And even those underpinnings of circumstance, which is attention, so we give attention to something, perception, meaning arises, that's one of those. Volition, I want to get there. I want to make that happen, get rid of that. These sankharas that normally kind of very much occupy the heart. So when we cultivate meditation, the process is finding a steady sign. So if I use the meditation on breathing, and it's not a particular breath, a particular point, it's the rhythmic flow, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. So something very fluid, which has a great effect, because the kind of attention that handles the fluidity can't be gripping. You can't hold on to a thing. You've got to be open within a particular range, and then contemplating the fluidity within that, staying with it. And this is called mindfulness. You have a theme, but you recognise the theme is not a static object, because there aren't any static objects. They're just changing forms. And what are? So we contemplate a breath. What is it? It's kind of sensations, energies, fluidities, soft, subtle, sharp, dragging, smooth. These are all attributes that are shifting and changing. So something as intimate as that, you can give a generic name to, breathing, but specifically you can't exactly nail it down. That generic is called perception of breathing. I mean, it's a general classifier, but within that classification you experience a range of energies and warmths and fluidities and sensations and tingling and stillness and so forth. And specifically, we can say, just as an example, specifically, nothing exists. Generically, there are forms that have that appearance, that we, specifically, itself. And yet, so if we listen to, sound of the crow, walk out my kuti, sound of the crow, well, that depends upon hearing, doesn't it? If I didn't have any hearing, if there wasn't hearing consciousness, there'd be no crows. So it's dependentiorism. And then you contemplate, which crow. Even calling it a crow is a perception, because all I hear is the sound. And the sound itself, kind of rises, passes, moving through. So we call the generic term is crow, crowing. But specifically, there's nothing. Undefinable. Just experience. Dependent upon consciousness. This is this kind of term, the aggregates, which you're aware of, playing like this. Consciousness, something, some form, something happens. There's some kind of, but what it is a perception, attention, contact, volition, inclination to listen, recording, all that builds it up. This is the process of the aggregates. Heart is called the host of the aggregates. Which feeling is often a very strong one of those guests. Feeling also throbs, pulses, moves. And in this analogy, I think it was the Buddha or maybe Sariputta saying, it's like you get these 5 guys turn up at the door saying, "Oh, we're here to help you out, make life comfortable, make it all work." And I said, "Oh, please come in. Please come in." "Oh, great." And then these 5 guests come in, and they gradually get together and they stab the host with pain, frustration, unwanted input, things I can't quite figure out, not getting my way, unpleasant feeling, and then another one, another sight or a sound or a touch or a taste does the same sort of thing. So that's the analogy that's used. Well, that's kind of the way it's built, isn't it? The way we're designed to operate. Once you're born, these aggregates come into being, and one's sense of identity is all meshed up in that. I'm the perceiver, I'm the thinker, I'm the one who has an urge, I'm the one who craves, I'm the one who wishes, I'm the one who can't quite get it, make it happen. Or I'm impacted by all these desires. And again, who's that? In its kind of mesh and tangle, the inner person is formed. So we actually take the time to meditation to really just come down to even a perception of breathing. So actually it's just kind of doesn't go forward, doesn't go backwards, it doesn't progress, it just keeps happening. And with this experience like this, it's actually quieter when one holds that frame of attention in mindfulness. It's kind of the sense of both the balance and the poise of the citta. It's alert but not gripping. It's attentive, not fascinated. It's receptive but not drenched, not overwhelmed. That's quite pleasant. It's a nice citta, feels quite comfortable there. The quality of that comfortable abiding has an effect. The body begins to calm down, breathing calms down. Breathing becomes quite pleasant, subtle and refined. Heart feels comfortable. And then the progression is the heart gradually draws into its comfort, draws into its piti sukha, joy and happiness, its comfort, equanimity, draws into that. Because this is much closer than the physical realm, or even the realm of, bodily energy. This is very close. And this is the kind of sense in which the heart says, I'll just let go of the rest of it, because this is pretty good. So time, the urge becomes a pressure, you don't want it. Idea of progress becomes a nuisance, you don't want it. Idea of getting somewhere becomes just a nagging, you don't want it. Heart just keeps relinquishing those things. It's steadying, it steadies, and it's gladdened by that, by itself. This is, mindfulness, equanimity, samadhi experiences. And these are obviously can be something we may touch into for brief periods of time, practice, meditation practice. I would say for most of us it's going to be, it's not going to be that common. But we can, you get a good period of retreat, it's, you can something that can unfold. But just any degree in which the heart has returned to itself, not just drawn out with what impact happens, it's going to have a strengthening effect. Strengthened and gladdened. The heart is then much more ready, capable of dealing with events, as we're not in that desperation or that anxiety or that fascination or that wishing, craving. If I don't get this, I won't be anywhere. No. That's the wrong message. That's the message called becoming. I have to become, things will become better. Change is inevitable. So a sense of dispassion. And you contemplate the teachings on anapanasati, like a process of really steadying, stabilizing, gladdening heart, and then the heart is able to turn towards phenomenon. I think this is just changeable, nothing really substantial. Becomes dispassionate. The energies that drive us into experience stop. We're not welded to things. And that release from being identified with body, sensations, feelings, and so on. So, this is a kind of very nutshell teaching. But if we even kind of come down to kind of like a Nicca Nupasi, so it's such a threshold, such a crucial threshold teaching. It's even this one word, contemplating of changeability, and you really take that up, say, what is it that changes? You can't actually find a thing. There's just like even something like a thought. You might approximately say a thought begins and ends. That's an approximation. But actually, thoughts tend to crystallize and evaporate. There's an arising through attention and interest and attention and perception, and then thought crystallizes. So it's like mist on the glass when you breathe on it. It doesn't just suddenly become wet, it just gets a little bit foggy and then it crystallizes. You get this appearance of water. And then if you leave it alone, gradually that evaporates. You can see that in real time, real world. But of course, in the micro world of our own minds, those are pretty rapid shifts and changes. But you're trying to find a thought that doesn't change. If it doesn't, even your own name, it's got to have a surging up, and then it's got to be some kind of tingle. Oh, that's me, I'm Gillian, or whatever, Venerable Sawako or something. And eventually it doesn't mean anything, it's a sound. What's a sound? It's something that only acquires that kind of impact through our belief in it. Through what we impart to that. How moved we are by it. There's no movement. It's just we're not moved by it. It just doesn't really take hold. And this is dispassion, and means that the event flow doesn't really have that same impact. It's something we can participate in this way in which we're, but then you're participating not from a sense of being welded to it, or gripped by it, or driven by it, or fascinated by it, or believing it's going to be fantastic, but just a sense of appropriate care, bringing forth the heart with the qualities of appropriate care, good karma, welfare of others, steadying. So it's the benevolence of the heart comes forth, rather than the fear or the demand. And this is certainly something we can all recognise and attribute to wise beings. From the Buddha on down, they may have gone beyond it all, but they're certainly extremely compassionate, benevolent beings. It's just that's the nature of the heart. But it turns towards experience, and then, as the Buddha himself, he can just withdraw from it. So a sense of events and time, and events, if the events themselves are seen as just kind of shiverings of that are dependently arisen, if I'm not interested or annoyed, or expecting or dreading, what's the impact? If there's no impact, does it really happen? It happens dependent upon how much I'm impacted by it. So much of what we're kind of conscious of, you could say, it's just like space, stone floor, not much impact. I don't really consider this an event, it's just background. Events are all the shifting, moving things that are interesting or need something. And what if those interests and needs are quelled? It's kind of all background in which one can kind of select what seems to be needed, not from some personal need, but just out of goodwill, or appropriate attention, careful attention. So it is said with the cessation of nama-rupa is the going out of the citta. Citta is never described as ceasing. Citta doesn't cease, it goes out. And this term atangamo, which we also attributed to the Muni, a sage. A sage is one who's gone out. And there's a statement in the Sutta Nipata, you can find it somewhere, saying, no, you can't describe where he's gone, you can't say. Where he is, you just can't. Because all that definition is what it's gone out from. Because the definitions are nama, perceptions, attention, contact, impressions, is released from that, you can't really say. But it doesn't mean cessation. I think this is where it gets really kind of tricky if you're into, Buddhist ideas, the deathless citta, Ajahn Mahabua, which people got a bit upset by because it sounds like some eternal soul, and Buddhists get very edgy when we're talking about eternal souls. Don't like that. But then kind of like, what is citta, what is the heart anyway? Is it a thing, an entity? Could you say that? No. You can't, because, what is it? Well, no, you're asking to give a perception of something you can't have a perception of, because it's not of that nature. You're asking to measure something that can't be measured. All you can know is happiness, or joy, or clarity, or coolness, or calm. You can get a feeling for the tonalities, but you can't create an entity out of it. And I think that soothes some of those concerns about, eternity or immortality or something like that. It's just that. When it cools, then the attributes, the namings fade out. You can't have a time without any events in it. There's no events. There's no time. But when we look at it intimately, what are our events? The events are things that concern me. Grass growing on the lawn doesn't bother me. The events are the pain in my body, concerns about my friends, worry about the state of the world, expectation of some great being coming to visit us. These are the kind of things that have got a strong emotional impact. And when we contemplate what the past is, to us, it's those things that have some emotional impact. Most of it's gone. Most of it never even happened. Really. It's just all that was retained is those things that have the emotional impact of some kind. And the net sum of that emotional impact is called me. I was this, I will be this. And whereas if there's no emotional impact, the me bit doesn't arise. What if that emotional impact was soothed, calmed, accepted, released from fear, released from anxiety, released from fascination? There's practice. What kind of being would be there? Find out. But the Buddha is saying this is where its suffering ends, stress ends. When that sense of identity is so constellated by the shift of aggregates, and the shifting and the embedded in them is relinquished, then the apparent entity is also relinquished. And suffering. So in our path, it's all well and good to go into these kind of esoteric realizations, but somebody's got to pay the bills. Somebody's got to get at work on time. Means I've got to have my marbles together, physically fit, otherwise I don't get paid, don't get fed, and so forth, So there are, conventional concerns, and conventional needs, conventional, things that need to be attended to. So absolutely. Then the response is, then you really, really need a steady heart to be able to manage this. A steady heart's not going to rise from these events, it's going to rise independent of them. It can't get steadied by, dollars or euros, or pounds. It can't. It's steadied by possessions, status, fame. It's can't. You see, people who've got these things are just constantly craving for more. They're not steady at all. Hearts of, those powerful people you see in the world are often, emotionally very uneven, unsteady, and desperate to hang on. What do you want to hang on to powerful when you're 80 years old? What's the point? You're going to die soon. It becomes addicted. The heart is so feeble, so undernourished, so weak, that you've got to hang on to these silly, transient things. And that's not just a personality defect, that's colossally destructive to the welfare of others. So we see, in the world of events, we have to take it seriously, because it may all seem like empty and shifting and changing, but there's real pain and anguish and evil being perpetrated through not cultivating the heart steadily. These baubles don't mean anything. I'm happy to share. I'm happy to let go of a few things. And then, what kind of friendships, alliances, allegiances, societies can arise dependent upon that. And if we can even just get down to real, intimate stuff, we know our life out in this relative world is transient, changeable, has to pass. And we'll be steady with that. From a steady heart, then the good qualities will come forth. That's very much our practice. And so in our relationship with the world of events, we find increasingly the need to develop what's called parami, generosity, ethical awareness, letting go, the ability to live simply, modestly, bringing forth steady energy, steadying one's energy so it's not spurting and sagging, rushing and dithering, patience, resolve, truthfulness, goodwill, discernment, clarity, equanimity. And the world teaches us this. So every time we are in this relative world of experiences, then it may be kind of just shifting change on one level, but it also has powerful karmic consequences if it's not managed carefully. And we, using or responding to how the world impacts us by, bringing forth the parami, these perfections, these transcendent qualities. And so when we cultivate like that, our life in the world is not wasted. It's not just, so what? It's actually a source, a field, in which one can cultivate great blessings and great strength. And the external, as I've talked about, the external world of circumstance, which is not divorced from the internal. The world of external circumstances in their change and the fragility brings forth the internal qualities of compassion, friendship, equanimity, patience, wisdom. And these naturally can feed back into the world of circumstances. Meditation provides that central point where we're establishing the hinge, if you like, between the external and the internal. We're steady. That hinge is steady. It's not ship falling off its axis. And that's the doorway through which interplay of the internal and external can co-create and develop great blessings, great good karma, and keep enriching the heart. So internally our heart is clear. So, time to put this into practice today, and it's every day. What does the world of time bring forth for you? Thinking of another day, how many hours, or what can I do this afternoon, hour sitting, hour walking. Or here we are again, get a bit bored, or am I making progress? Just notice underneath these signs and designations, what qualities are there when we begin to designate. And then those qualities can be properly managed. Then we're in something that's very open and potent, presenting change, dispassion, relinquishment.